Hey guys, Josh here, and I played 200 days of Echoes of the Plum Grove. I already made a video covering my first 100 days, and I would strongly recommend watching that first if you have not already, as this will be a direct continuation of that playthrough. While my first 100 days were mostly about learning the game and just surviving, I have a few specific goals that I want to reach before day 200. Of course, my main objective is to keep surviving and to make sure that the turnip family lives on. Then I would like to upgrade all of my farm buildings, so I'm missing the last house upgrade, plus the upgrade for the coop and the barn. Lastly, I would like to finish the main story, which is done by completing the 6 pillars. At the end of my first 100 days, I only had the social pillar completed, so there will be a lot of work to do there. Before we get started, however, a long video like this one is possible thanks to today's sponsor, Red Deer Games, developer and publisher of Tokyo Cooking. Now available for the Nintendo Switch, Tokyo Cooking lets you run your own restaurant and prepare iconic Japanese dishes. Take your customers' orders and navigate the kitchen in first person to find the correct ingredients, and follow the recipe step by step by using the different cooking stations and completing minigames. Wash the rice, cook it, cut vegetables, brew teas, assemble sushi rolls and rice balls. You will do everything a Japanese chef does. As you progress, you will get to customize your restaurant by changing the chairs, tables, as well as decor items like plants, which will make the interior more visually appealing. If you're interested in this cozy cooking experience, Tokyo Cooking is currently 70% off for its launch week until May 24th, so feel free to check it out on the Nintendo eShop. One last little thing before we dive into Plum Grove, I want to apologize as there was a problem with the recording for the first few days, so to get the footage I had to download my live stream off of YouTube. The resolution is a bit lower as a result, and I cropped my face out so it wouldn't be too distracting. It's really just for the first 10 days, however, after that everything looks like it's supposed to. Day 101, I woke up, still with smallpox, but at least I woke up. William was finally looking healthy again, our youngest son Leo was still doing fine, so our eldest son Andrew and I were the only 2 sick people now in our family. There were no funeral invitations in the mail, so things were starting to look pretty good. That's not to say I didn't get mail at all, however, as I did receive some hot chocolate from Leo. We were living together, so I found it a bit odd. It also doesn't seem like a practical gift to send to someone by mail, but honestly, that is why I love Leo so much. He's like the quirky kid in the family. The following day, I don't know if there was something in that hot chocolate, maybe I'll have to try that next time I get sick, but I was cured from smallpox. And so was Andrew, so by some miracle, we all survived. To celebrate, I decided to make an extra chest and to finally start organizing my stuff a bit. Not too much, but a bit. I love the idea of being organized in a farming game, but for the first 2 years at least, I'm always all over the place. My chests are so messy, and it's really annoying me, but at the same time, I don't do much to fix it. I am way more organized and tidy in real life, so I don't know what my problem is. Let me know if you're the same, but I am working on it, and I made one chest near my workbench where I put most of my crafting materials. Day 103, Leo put some cream in the mailbox, once again a bit weird, but look at him, he's so cute. I also found out that his hobby was farming. Every character has a hobby in this game, so before working from 9 to 5 on our farm, he would go working on the neighbor's farm for a bit. Such a hard working guy. We were approaching the end of spring, and I knew that I wanted to grow some cotton for the first time in summer. So I decided to make a spinning wheel that I would use to turn cotton into thread. Thread does last forever, but there's not much use in growing cotton until you have a spinning wheel, as unrefined cotton will rot over time. Day 104, not sure if it was the smallpox or old age, but 2 people passed away. I also received an invitation to the wedding of Judith Jones and Verity Edwards. I didn't know them too much, but just look at Judith, you can tell she didn't want to get married. While I was busy organizing my chest and preparing for summer, I realized I had completely forgotten to check on my barn animals. I put a lot of food in their trough when I got them 5 days ago, but I guess they ended up running out and died. I was over 30-something hours into the game and still making silly mistakes, but I was learning from them and having a good time. No big deal though, I bought a new goat, an adult one this time so I wouldn't have to wait until it grows, and I also got a sheep. When I got back home, I decided to craft a second smelter since they're smelting pretty slowly, and I would need a ton of bars, bricks, and glass to make some of the crafting stations I was missing, as well as the building upgrades. Day 105 was the last day of spring. I was really excited for it, but when I looked at my mail, I suddenly remembered that smallpox was still a thing. Lisa, Louis, Judith, Rose, Emery, Justin, they all waited to die on the same day. The one that stood out to me the most was Judith, as she was just about to get married, but not only that, her wedding was scheduled for the second day of summer. Obviously, that got cancelled, but her funeral got scheduled for the second day of summer as well. Coincidence? I don't know, but it was the second time that a wife of Verity Edwards passed away, so I would have to keep an eye out for her. I also got a mysterious invitation from someone meeting up with their sisters at 11 p.m, so I couldn't miss that. I got milk from my goat for the first time, and to my surprise, it was a Gold Star milk, so I could finally start donating some animal products for the farming pillar. For some reason, my eggs were always just Bronze Star quality. I looked it up and I think it's just a bug with the current version of the game. And then I harvested my hay, and this time made sure that my animals would have enough food for a long time. In the evening, I headed to the forest and I got there 3 hours early, just wanting to make sure I didn't miss anything. At 11, my friend Astra showed up and we went deep into the forest together. She then changed into a beautiful witch outfit, and I met her 2 witch friends. Sweet Pea was the colorful one, and she was selling a bunch of colorful things, including a rainbow goat, which was a bit pricey, but I did not hesitate a second. Then there was Desdemona, who in a stark contrast was selling black and dark things, including an evil-looking midnight goat. I could have probably sold a few of my belongings to purchase it, but my barn was almost at full capacity already, and I wanted to have a cow which provides a different type of milk than goats. I was also not sure if these special goats were worth it in the first place, so I decided to pass for now. At 1 a.m, the witches started their ritual and asked me to choose between a curse on Lolita Smith, Roland's daughter, who has never done anything wrong, so she didn't deserve that. The other options were a blessing of fertility, which I didn't need since I already had 2 children, and the last one was a good harvest. They didn't give me more details, so I'm not sure if it's supposed to increase the quality of crops or their quantity, but I figured it couldn't hurt. They then started levitating and lift their arms up for a few minutes, came back down, and the ritual was done, and I went back home. I woke up around 9 a.m, and the first thing I did was to check out my new goat. It was also now summer, so like any first of the month, the priority was farming, so Leo, Andrew, and I worked hard to plant as many summer seeds as we could. I planted some raspberry and blueberry bushes in front of my fence, and I was pretty excited about how the farm was starting to look. I also realized I had a few coffee trees, which I had completely forgotten about since I planted them late the year before, but I will certainly be using them. I just needed some cow milk to make coffee, but first, a bit of sleep after a long day of work. Day 107, I woke up to pretty sad news as my favorite blacksmith, Roland, the one who had been providing me with high-quality nails and iron bars since I arrived, had just passed away. On a brighter note, I got my first bucket of rainbow milk, Gold Star quality, and my other goat had also been providing gold milk every day, so I was starting to make some good progress on the farming pillar. These goats were the goats. But they kept wandering everywhere on the farm and getting in my way, so I decided to build a proper pen for them. Not much happened during the following days. Taking care of my animals was a bit easier with their new pen. I planted a few more bushes, did some farming. Days were pretty good aside from the daily funerals. Just like during the first summer, the graveyard was quite backlogged, and a name I did not want to see got added to the list on day 110, Sarah Edwards. My dear best friend, the one who always gave me the most fun quest, who taught me the most delicious recipes, gave me expensive wine, the fashion icon for every situation. She had been there for me since the beginning, and I regretted not interacting with her more these last few days. I was slowly losing everyone I knew, and her funeral got scheduled for 4 days later. It seems like that still wasn't enough for some people, as Astra gave me a death cake on the same day. If the name of the item wasn't obvious enough, you can give this cake to someone and if they eat it, they die. So why was she giving this to me? Did she want me to eat it and die? Did she want me to give it to someone else? Should I give it back to her? I wasn't sure what to do with this lethal weapon, so I put it in my cellar and decided I would take it out whenever the timing was right. Day 111, I don't know if that's a lucky number, but the footage is looking clean again, sorry about that. I went to some funeral and I think people were starting to get a bit burned out on funerals as very few people showed up. Concepcion, the mayor, knew that things would get worse before they would get better, as she gave me a bunch of adoption papers, 3 of them. And she wasn't wrong. The next day, Leo got sick again, and it looked a lot worse than smallpox. His skin was kind of green, he looked nauseous and dizzy, and just not at all like his usual self. There was no way for me to know the disease in the game at the time, but that was during a live stream fortunately, and the developers told me it was malaria. It is an illness you can get randomly, mostly in summer. Fortunately, it is not contagious, but there is a 30% chance of dying, and there was absolutely nothing I could do to improve Leo's chances of survival. Also, I thought my character was getting sick as well, but I found out that I just had the sad emote turned on since the previous day's funeral, so I put on a smile to send some good vibes to Leo. It didn't work too well as he was still sick on day 113. I also felt bad because he kept working on the farm with Andrew, and I wish you could tell your family members to rest instead. It could maybe increase their chances of recovery, but that is not something you can do, at least right now. I appreciated his work ethic, however, and that gave me time to do a few quests and also to sell some of my rainbow milk, which when it's a gold star sells for 199 coins. So that rainbow goat was an amazing investment and I certainly wanted more of them. Day 114, no good news, Leo was still sick. I harvested my crops so he wouldn't have too much work to do. I did some more quests and I unlocked a few decorative crafting blueprints as well as a recipe for lavender ice cream. But before getting to any of these things, I had to find out what was up with that blood moon. It was my second one. During the first one, I found a key for a ghost who rewarded me with a lost note. I was completely clueless as to what I should do with that note, and I figured I should maybe give it to Astra since she's a witch and probably knows more than me. I gave it to her and she just said, well, it's better than a poke in the eye. And so that clearly was not what I was supposed to do with the note, and now I no longer had the note. I talked with a few ghosts on my way back home, none of them had quests or anything interesting to say, so I just gave up on the blood moon. If you've played this game and know what to do on those nights, please let me know. Leo was still sick in the morning, I did a few more quests and I was really starting to accumulate a lot of new blueprints and recipes every day. During the first year, I found that a lot of the quests were very difficult since I didn't have access to many resources, but in that second year, things were starting to feel easier. I bought my first cow, I treated myself to some lavender ice cream, and even better, I crafted an anvil, which meant that I could finally make my own nails using iron bars, with 1 bar giving 8 nails. To be honest though, I ended up not using the anvil too much since I was saving up my iron bars for other things, such as a large icebox, and the habit of buying nails daily from the blacksmith became so ingrained in me that I was never running out. Day 116, Leo was not looking better, but at least he was still alive. I got cow milk for the first time, which meant I now had everything needed to make my daily coffee. Right away, I was hooked. Coffee is such a game changer as 1 cup makes you run twice as fast for 5 hours. Days are always pretty packed in this game I find, except in winter. I rarely run out of things to do, so that coffee would make me a lot more efficient. Not only was I making coffee, I was also making wine, which sells for a good amount of money and is made with the wild grapes that can be found everywhere in summer. I knew I just needed a few more casks in the future to be more productive, as I was only able to make 1 bottle every few days with my 1 cask. I was still on my way to becoming more and more organized, and I made a chest just for my seeds as they were starting to get a bit difficult to keep track of. I then remembered about the pillars, so I went to check on my progress, and I decided I would tackle the foraging pillar next. I needed to donate some gold ore, which I had some saved in my chest, so I was not worried about that, and I was at 9 out of 30 gold star forageables. It might sound like I had a long way to go, but I knew I could easily do it during the summer with all of the wild grapes, roses, and lavender around the island. I went foraging until 4 AM, and I was now at 12 out of 30. I got to bed around 7 AM on that day and slept until 3 PM, a bit unusual, but I like how this game really lets you sleep at whatever time works for you. I received an invitation for the bake-off that would be held the following day, and if you watched my first 100 days, you know how bad I messed up because I barely knew any recipe. I was now so close to cooking level 2, and yeah, I know it's really not much, but I wanted to get at least to that level and maybe learn a new recipe that could save me in the bake-off. I still didn't have too many ingredients, so I just made my usual cup of coffee, and luckily that was enough to level me up. When I went to bed at night, not only did I learn how to make a lemon tart thanks to my improved cooking skills, I also got my crafting to level 10 and got to choose between two perks. Either a 50% chance to double refined items, or refining takes 50% less time. I went for the latter because I liked the guarantee that it was always going to be faster, and I had a lot more material to process than machines, so I wanted to speed up the process. However, one interesting thing about this game is that, contrary to, let's say, Stardew Valley, your character will die at one point and you will get to choose new perks for your child or whoever takes over. So I think that the double items could be a great pick in a generation or two when I have more machines on my farm. Speaking of generations, Leo was nowhere to be seen when I came down the stairs. I still had Andrew, of course, but I knew that William and I were both approaching the end because of our age, so if anything bad was to happen to Andrew, the Turnip family would be at risk of disappearing forever, and after playing this game for so long, I did not want that to happen. I also learned that Verity was getting married for the third time. Things were always ending badly with her, so I decided to just stay away and not attend. I then headed to the bake-off, and there I saw Barbara, a captain from the Empire. It was only 10:30 in the morning, but she looked like she had a few drinks already. She was still doing good enough to trade, however, and I needed some retail therapy to get over my loss of Leo. So I splurged. I spent over 3,000 coins on stuff, from useful things like paint and iron bars, to more frivolous things like a tea set, a fruit bowl, and a plant. I also treated myself to some pink and yellow dyes so I could customize my outfit a bit later. A lot of people started waiting at the gates for the event to start, and I noticed Isabella was looking drunk as well. I'm not sure what happened beforehand, but it looks like they were having a good time. The gates opened, I got in and have a look at the judges. Concepcion was the only one sober, or the best one at hiding it. The day was off to a really weird start, but I had to remain focused on the bake-off and I didn't want to mess things up a second year in a row. I had way more knowledge this time around, so it was easier. An egg on top and a fruit salad for Concepcion. Believe it or not, a tipsy cake for Barbara, as if she wasn't already tipsy enough, followed by a lemon tart, which I had just learned how to make the day before. I was really killing it, then I went back to my roots with some simple dishes like a survival salad for Isabella, a journey cake for Concepcion, and I wrapped everything up with something I learned during my first Harvest Festival, a pumpkin pie with 2 seconds left on the timer. Concepcion announced the winner. Luckily for these two, they didn't have to say anything. I'm sure they were just thinking about going back home. And the winner was me, Josh Turnip. One of the other contestants was a child, so I don't know how fair it was, but I got 500 coins along with a blueberry cream cake and a recipe to make that same cake. I ate the cake and got a cooking buff, increasing the quality of cooked items, so I would try to remember that for later. I made a little afternoon tea area in my house with the stuff I bought from Barbara. I changed some of the wallpapers. Things were starting to feel a bit more cozy. The next day, I know my character was still smiling, but he was crying on the inside. I did a few chores, picked up some berries, made some thread, then I prepared for Leo's funeral. For the first time, I would actually make the effort to dress accordingly. I found this outfit. It was a bit more dark gray than black, but I had spent all of my money on furniture and I had no way to buy something new at the moment. I went to the graveyard pretty early and William joined me not long after. Look at how cute Leo was. Even after the 200 days, I still miss him so much. 30 minutes before the start of the funeral, another lady arrived and look at her face. You know the disaster girl meme, the little girl with the house burning in the background? This is pretty much the same vibe. Then another guy showed up and I know he just wanted to give me a quest, but it made it look like he was just completely clueless and wondering what was happening. Then the mayor, Tammy the blacksmith, and of course Andrew got there right as it started, but that was it. My son passed away from malaria and barely anyone showed up to the funerals. It's in moments like these ones where you can see who your true friends are. I cried a bit more, I fainted, but then I remembered I still had a family relying on me, so I got up and watered all the crops by myself throughout the night. The next day, I spent most of my time foraging until late at night, and around 1 AM, I was able to donate the remaining Gold Star forageables to complete the foraging pillar. That was my second pillar completed, and just like the first one and any of the ones that will follow, I did not get any reward, but I was one step closer to fixing that gate inside the tree. The crafting and farming pillars were advancing pretty well, but the fishing and cooking ones were still way behind with barely anything contributed to them. I got back home to sleep a bit and I woke up to a gift from Lolita in the mail. Maybe she heard that my funeral outfit was a bit lacking, so she sent me this beautiful black hat. While on my way to donate milk to the farming pillar, which was my next objective, I met the ghost of Leo for the first time. He told me, "Live your life as best as you can, Josh, do it for the both of us." And then he said how much he missed growing crops. The dialogues are so simple in this game, but it's crazy how you can get attached to these characters. Leo asked me for some dried fruit, and I had no use for the extra mana, honestly, but I couldn't say no to him. If you watched my first 100 days, you might remember how I kept going to the blacksmith in hopes of finding a steel pickaxe, but Roland never had one for me. I don't know if it was a coincidence, but just a few days after he passed and Tammy took over the shop, I was able to get one from her. Finally, thank you so much, Tammy. I was really starting to like her because not only was she one of the few people that showed up at Leo's funerals, she was now also the very best blacksmith. So I ran to the mines and I had some coffee earlier, so I was really running, and I got to that boulder I had been wanting to break for so long. There, I found the most sparkling room with a new mining spot where I found some quartz and gold, nothing really new but still valuable. The following days were pretty calm, I kept mining and I eventually found some sapphire and amethyst, which I'm not sure can be used in crafting or anything like that, but they sold for a pretty good amount, about 200 coins per gem, so it wouldn't take too long to pay back my steel pickaxe. I also sold a lot of crops and jam, so financially I was pretty much back to where I was before Leo passed away. Day 125, I had some pretty good news in the mail. Andrew was getting married to Dwayne Odell. Well, on one hand, I was happy for him, but on the other hand, it also meant that I would lose my farm helper as he would move out of the house to be with Dwayne, who worked at the inn, so they would be living there together. Of course, I still had William, who worked as a carpenter and brought home some money every day, but otherwise it felt like I had taken a step back in terms of progression, which is not something that happens in a lot of games, and I found the added challenge interesting. And I was making progress in other ways. I was now at 12 out of 30 Gold Star animal products for the farming pillar. Day 126 was the last day of summer. I had collected a good quantity of grapes all summer long to make wine, and I decided to finally make a second wine cask to speed up my production. They're a bit pricey to make since they require steel, but 100% worth it. Summer is also when you get raspberries, blueberries, and most trees produce fruits, so I figured I should harvest everything before fall. I wanted to keep them for cooking, but my small icebox and my cellar were no longer enough to store all of them. I decided to keep only the Gold Star products and to sell everything else since you cannot stack items of different quality levels in the storage, and I was on a mission to build a large icebox before my Gold Star stuff downgraded. But first, the wedding. It was a nice event, Dwayne's family was there, everybody was there, and the future looked secure for the Turnip family. As long as I was living though, these two would be staying at the inn and I had to keep doing all of the work myself. My hard work was being rewarded, however, as I got to farming level 10 and I had to pick a new perk. The first option was animals having more children, the second one was butchering yielding more meat. I was not really butchering my animals, and since animals could die of old age, just like humans, I went for the first option as babies are everything in this game. I started the first day of autumn by picking up some iron bars from my smelters, and for some reason, when I did, a bunch of fruits came out of nowhere. I'm not sure if these were fruits that I had forgotten to pick up the day before, if it was a bug or something else, but I really needed to figure out my food storage situation. My inventory and my chests were all getting full and I was overall struggling. Not only did I have to figure all of that out, it was also the first of the month, which meant I had tons of seeds to plant. With no farm helper, I had to be efficient. It was tough. I managed to make it work, but it was time for William to quit his job as a carpenter. I loved the extra money and convenience, but I really needed his help on the farm. While William was working on the fields the next day, I took the time to catch up with the ghost. I did a quest to learn a potion called Sleep Be Gone, which sounded like something I really needed. It was very easy to brew. My character was pretty sleepy when I got home, so I drank it, and it might have been a bug, but my sleepiness meter did not change at all. I would have loved to keep working throughout the night, but I would have to wait for that to get fixed first. When I got home, there was a letter for Isabella's funeral. She was the only member of the Whitfield family that I liked. Actually, Quentin was also not too bad, but now that she was gone, most of the starting cast of villagers were no longer here. I slept until 10 AM on that day, which would have not happened if the potion worked, but there's no use in complaining, I had things to do. I made myself a little toast with cheese, which filled my character's hunger, but is making me hungry right now. I also had a cup of coffee, then I decided to treat myself to a recolor of my outfit, as I didn't like how this one was the exact same thing Quentin was wearing. I had the pink and yellow dyes I bought from Barbara. They both looked great, but the tailor also had green and red available on that day, so I decided to go with green. I then figured I should start putting some effort towards the fishing pillar, so I went fishing, and after several hours, I managed to get 1 gold star mussel. Your chance at getting higher quality fish increases with your skill level, so I had to start fishing a lot more regularly. However, my newly found motivation to become a master fisherman abruptly ended on day 130 as I woke up to an empty staircase. It's always been our family hanging out spot where I could see how everybody was doing first thing in the morning. 12 days earlier, Leo left it forever. Shortly after, Andrew moved out, and that day it was William's turn. His funeral was set for the following day, and I was now all by myself. I also knew that my turn would come sooner than later, and even though we had Andrew, I was starting to get a bit worried. I watered my crops. I wondered if William maybe didn't like his last days working on the farm. Then I waited for Isabella's funeral to start. I was feeling a bit bitter because there were a lot more people than at Leo's funeral. I went back home and decided to decorate my farm a little bit with this new lantern to try to improve my mood, and I went to bed not too late. Day 131 was William's funeral. I went all in for my outfit with the hat Lolita sent me by mail after Leo's funeral, and not only did she show up, but so many others did. After all, William had been in Honeywood for his whole life and had time to forge a lot of friendships, which I think is what really determines who will appear at funerals. Also, I realized that the Disaster Girl meme lookalike that always showed up at my family members' funerals was Keisha Whitfield. I don't think she was doing that for other funerals, so that's another reason why I don't like that family. And on top of that, she's the one who took William's spot as a carpenter. After all the bad things that had been happening and everybody passing away, we finally had some good news on day 132, as Dwayne was pregnant and I was about to become a grandpa. So exciting. Or so I thought. I went fishing in the evening, and as soon as the clock hit midnight, what I feared the most happened. Josh Turnip was gone, and he died while doing something he didn't even like, fishing. The baby was born right at the same time, and I could choose to continue playing either as Andrew Turnip or Marcia Odell, who I guess got Dwayne's last name since he was the one pregnant. I went with Andrew as picking the child would make her age to an adult instantly and make me lose some precious time, and I wanted to make sure she had everything she needed before she could take over. So I was playing as Andrew now, Marcia was an infant, and Dwayne was still working as the innkeeper. Even though Andrew had been an adult for a while, he didn't have many friends, so I would no longer be getting gifts every day in the mail. He even disliked a few people, such as Ina Odell, Dwayne's sister. His skills were quite low too, with just 2 points in most of them, 3 in crafting and 4 in farming. It could have been worse, but he was nowhere near the skills he should have halfway through his adult life stage. I guess that's what you get when you don't send your kids to school. This meant that it would be more difficult to get gold star products for the pillars, and also that my perks, such as lower prices in stores or faster processing times for items, were gone, and it was a huge setback. Fortunately, Andrew still knew all of the blueprints and recipe that his dad did, so that knowledge did not get lost, and he also kept all of the inventory minus the clothes that Josh was wearing. For some reason, the crops were automatically watered on that day, and it wasn't raining, so that might have been a bug, or maybe the virtual gods just decided to finally give me a little break after everything that's been happening. It's crazy how everything got turned upside down and changed within the span of 1 to 2 weeks. Day 134, I got a 20 coins salary from Dwayne. I don't know if that depends on where they work or on their skills, but it was half of what William was doing as a carpenter. So I asked him to quit and to help me on the farm. I made Andrew wear Josh's usual funeral outfit, and it was time for the funeral. A ton of people showed up, maybe 75% of the whole town, but one very important person was missing. Can you find out who? The missing person was Dwayne. Andrew's husband, who basically just got a nice free house from Josh, did not even show up to his funerals. There was simply no excuse for that behavior. After the funerals, I sold my old dog and I bought a new black and white one because I felt like it didn't make sense for the pet to outlive everybody. Then, you know what I did? I divorced Dwayne. Was I making everything way more difficult for myself by doing that? Absolutely. Was I enjoying the drama though? Absolutely. And you know what? Let's make even more drama. On my way home, I saw Ina Odell, Dwayne's sister that I didn't even like. Let's marry her. I gave her a pumpkin and our friendship went from red to green, and so this was going to be pretty easy, I thought. I went to pet my new black and white dog and I called it a day. Day 135, Marcia was no longer a baby, and I could have asked her to help on the farm, but I wanted to set the next generation for success, so I decided to send her to school. I made meeting up with Ina part of my daily routine, and we were quickly getting closer. While I was going through this midlife crisis and changing everything, I thought might as well change my outfit, so I did that. And I did the same for Marcia, and I think we're both looking much better with a bit of color. On the topic of clothes, Josh had made a lot of thread from the cotton before passing away, and I was now able to craft a loom with those. Looking at the footage now, I think I put the loom on the wrong side, but it was still working anyway, and I could put thread into it to make cloth. I know I should have been saving all of my resources for a large icebox, but I decided to make instead a second flour mill, a dye station which was really not important, and I put some turmeric into it to make yellow dye. At that point, I was just acting impulsively, losing track of my objectives, but with everything that had been happening, I just needed a bit more time to get back on track. For the next few days, I went out of my way to insult Dwayne, spent some time with Ina, and did some mining to make a bit of progress on that icebox. Day 139, it was time for Halloween, and my daughter Marcia dressed up as a sunflower. Last year, if you remember, despite the fact that Patrick Stewart did say it was the best Halloween ever, the mayor, Mary Whitfield, scolded me saying I had not done enough. So the second year, to make sure I didn't have to hear the mayor complaining, I prepared by making pancakes and lemon tarts to give to the kids, but then I found out that you could only give them candies and not other types of sweets, and I didn't know how to make those yet. So I went to the inn, I insulted Dwayne like I did every day, and I bought from him a caramel apple recipe which required caramel that I don't know how to get, but I also bought 4 caramel apples that he had in stock. I treated as many kids as I could, then at night I went to the party. I thought there was nothing special to do there, but I actually found that the baker was selling recipes for candy corn cake and pumpkin bread, so I made sure to get those. I chatted a bit with the villagers, danced for a while, and went to bed. When I woke up, I headed to my crafting room. Was I finally about to make my large icebox? Don't ask me why, but instead I made this writing desk, which was purely decorative, and I barely managed to find space for it. I kept making bad decisions one after the other, but not everything was bad though, as the mayor told me that the children loved Halloween and she sent me 200 coins. I had spent over 400 coins for the caramel apples, so it was not as great of a reward as it seemed, but at that point I was just hanging on to any kind of good news I could get. It was also Sunday, which meant market day. I bought a marriage bouquet from Ina. I know, not the most subtle move, but it's not like I had a ton of options. She would have to wait a bit longer though before I could give it to her, since I made the mistake, yes, another mistake, of giving her an apple right before, and I forgot you could only gift someone once every 3 days. Also, all of the kids were still wearing their Halloween costumes for some strange reason. The next day, Marcia was back into her regular clothes, but I noticed something on her face: smallpox. I went to the doctor to get Andrew vaccinated, but the option wasn't there. I figured it was probably like chickenpox, where you can only get it once in your life, so I was feeling confident that Andrew would be fine. However, as the only other member of the family, Marcia had to make it through. Unfortunately, I couldn't do too much to help her, but I pulled her out of school so she wouldn't get other kids or the teacher sick. I went to school to check how things were going there, and somehow there was only one kid, Maritza, not to be confused with Marcia, my daughter, still in a sunflower outfit. There was no teacher to be seen, so either other people were getting sick too, or the schedule was just a bit weird. Day 142, not much happened, but I made a pumpkin pie and I realized that you could actually move away from the pot while things were cooking. I had always been just waiting there, and some recipes could take quite some time, but that was not necessary. Despite all of these setbacks, like most of my family passing away and everything that's been happening, I was still learning new things and making progress in other ways. Marcia was still sick, but the future started to look a bit brighter on day 143 as I declared my love to Ina with the bouquet. She accepted it, but in order to go further in our relationship, she requested me to befriend none other than her brother Dwayne. This was slightly awkward, but I had to do it. Also, even though I had been insulting him regularly, somehow our relationship was neutral, so I think it always goes back there with a bit of time, which worked out in my favor. I told him I was gonna marry his sister, I gave him some honey, and look, we were already quite in the green. The following day, Marcia was looking healthy again, and that's when I remembered that kids can't actually pass away in this game, so her getting smallpox as a child and not as an adult was a blessing. I sent her back to school, and since she was staying at home, I don't think anyone else got sick, or at least no one died. Day 145, I got a reminder for the Harvest Festival, which I had completely forgotten about and not prepared for in any way. Just like Maritza, who was still in her sunflower outfit, I was not over Halloween yet, and here we had another festival coming up. I'm still not sure what the exact criteria are to win the Harvest Festival, so you have this display where you can put some of your best items, but I don't know if diversity is important, if items not from your farm count or not, and just how things are calculated, but I grabbed a few of my crops, artisan, and animal products I could find for the event. Don't ask me why, but I still managed to forget about the festival the next day. I was slowly farming and doing some chores, then I went to town around 12 and there I saw all of the festivities. I tried Astra's wheel a few times, I was lucky enough to win a pumpkin plush, but when I got to the Grange display, the judge was judging and it was just too late to show my stuff. I was able to submit some animals in time for the animal contest, so of course I submitted my rainbow goat along with a few others. While they were being evaluated, I bought this lovely pumpkin hat, and I was close enough with Dwayne to ask Ina on a date. I decided that we would meet the next day at the tavern right where Dwayne worked at 6 p.m. I did not win the animal contest, by the way, and I'm not too sure what I have to do in order to increase my chances. I know you can't wait to see how that date went, so we'll get there very shortly, but it was the last day of fall, so of course I had to make sure to harvest all of my apples and everything else that would wilt. I know I've been talking about making a new icebox for over a month. Bear with me, a lot of stuff happened, but I was not ready to craft it quite yet. It required 22 iron bars, I was doing my best, but it was a lot. Around 4:30, I got to the tavern and had a little chat with Dwayne. About 20 minutes later, Ina showed up, but I had to wait until 6 before I could officially propose. So we awkwardly waited there in the entryway for over an hour. The inn was really packed too. Dwayne was there, of course, so you're probably thinking that doesn't sound like an ideal date, and it wasn't. Ina refused my gold ring and told me she was not ready. I very conveniently bought another marriage bouquet from her, but now she wanted me to befriend Mario Edwards, her little brother. I had not even realized until now that there was a third child in her family, but luckily our relationship was already pretty good, so I would just have to speak with him maybe 1 or 2 more times. All of that talking and flirting was not in vain, however, as I leveled up my social skill and grabbed the perk to decrease the price of items. The first day of winter was uneventful. Winter is pretty calm in this game, but I did manage to find Mario Edwards and I had a quick chat with him. Ina was already sleeping at that time, so I did the same. The next day, I couldn't find her, she wasn't at home, and thinking of it now, her location probably appeared on the map since I had an active quest with her, but I didn't think of that at the time. Maybe part of me was subconsciously waiting for a nice even number to ask her out, so I did on day 150. The tavern was clearly not the best idea, so I opted for the lighthouse this time, a nice simple date at her place. I also found out that she had another siblings, Tracy Edwards, this very young teacher. By the way, yes, Maritza was still in her sunflower outfit. I will admit I was starting to feel a bit lost with all of the different families and I had a hard time keeping up with who's who. I know the developers are planning to add proper family trees into the game, so things might get easier. And I know I even said in my first video how you could see your character's relatives in the menu and how that was very convenient. But the problem is that it stops at 4 characters. So for example, we have Dwayne, Ina, Mario, and Tracy who are all siblings, plus they have their parents and eventually will have their own children, so some of them get cut off from that little menu, and if you don't keep a close eye on everybody, you keep discovering family members you had no idea existed. Day 150 is also when I finally made my large icebox. I had to rearrange a few things to make it fit nicely in my house. Things were starting to feel cramped, but that icebox, double the size of the small one, was such an upgrade. I still have a lot of stuff from fall that was waiting to get properly preserved, like flowers, squash, and apples, so I was able to save them before they lost too much of their quality. By the way, we're halfway there. If you can, please consider leaving a like on the video. It helps so much, and it lets me know that you're enjoying these long videos. I was getting so close to finishing the farming pillar with 27 out of 30 animal products donated. At that point though, I had not yet realized I just had 50 days left and I kept neglecting the 3 other pillars. 6 PM was the time for my second attempt at proposing to Ina. The atmosphere was amazing, we were by the sea, there was this beautiful starry sky. It looked like the stars were aligned, literally, but no, she told me it wasn't the right time. This was so much harder than I had anticipated, especially considering how easy it was for Andrew's parents to get married. Times had changed, I guess, and dating in 1702 was not the same. I woke up the next day to a letter from Ina asking me for some persimmons, and she would reward me with a good chunk of money and recipes I did not know yet. So I decided to get working on that, and I also got an invitation to the crafting festival, which was to be held the following day. I had a good amount of persimmon trees on my farm, which was incredibly useful as a lot of quests in winter required those, and they're also the only thing you can grow in that season. I gave some to Ina and did what was becoming a routine now. I bought a marriage bouquet from her, but I would have to wait a bit before I was able to gift it. I made sure to go mining pretty much every day in winter, as I was making pretty good money with the gold bars and gems. I also spent a bit more time fishing. It took a really long time to level up, but I needed to work on that. Day 153, I did some more fishing. I tried to find Ina, but I couldn't, and the town was looking a lot emptier than usual, and I was wondering why. That's until I saw a huge group of people all walking together, and I remembered it was the crafting festival, which I had completely forgotten about. I don't know why I kept forgetting festivals that year, but it was okay since I had won that one in the first year, barely though cause I was late, and the reward was quite underwhelming. Among the crowd was Ina. I gave her the bouquet, and this time she asked me to befriend Lydia Odell, one of her 2 moms, whom I was pretty close with already, so it wouldn't take too long. Ina was playing hard to get, but at least I was making friends out of this whole situation, and I really got to know her family well. As I was saying, the town was starting to feel empty, but it was not just because everyone was at the festival. Almost every single day during that winter, I would receive an invitation to a funeral. I don't think anyone was sick, everybody seemed quite healthy, but they were all just getting old. The game does a pretty good job at ensuring the town never runs out of villagers, so new people move in regularly, well except in the last 2 weeks of winter when no shape is coming in. We had 3 children in town, which was on the lower end, but at least the school was not completely empty. The ratio of elders to young adults was going up, And overall, I like how the vibe of the town slowly changes as people age and new families form. One thing that never changes, however, is the gossip. Sometimes villagers will even overshare about themselves just to get people talking. For example, Ina told me this about Concepcion, who, keep in mind, is the mayor. Don't tell her I told you, but I heard from Concepcion Pace that the mayor has been having trouble with his bowel movements. Isn't that funny? Not sure why she used his instead of her. My guess is that this line was probably written about Quentin Whitfield, the very first mayor, but the randomness of it all is what kept things interesting. After getting my daily fix of gossip, it was time for some serious stuff, and I paid for a coop upgrade which would allow me to house 8 birds instead of 4. Day 155, I met up with Lydia in the morning, and that was it. We were now close friends. Ina didn't seem to be doing too well, however. From time to time, I was seeing these villagers looking like this, and I started to wonder if they were drunk or if maybe it was an illness, but they never seemed to die from it. Anyway, she looked nauseous and had trouble with her balance. But I was able to ask her on a date, and this time I opted for the waterfalls. It was the only date location we had not been to, and after all, this is where Andrew's parents proposed, so it seemed perfectly fitting. Before wrapping up that day, I checked in with the ghost and I saw Josh, which is always nice to see your original character, and he offered me a recipe for the Dissolve Disease potion, which I assume could cure any disease. I just had to get some lamb meat for him first. The next day, the coop was ready, and we can't see too well because it's dark and there's a snowstorm. However, the new coop is so much cuter than the first one. The only problem was that it wasn't centered like it used to be. I went to see the carpenter to move it around, but the actual model of the building was completely out of the borders it was supposed to be in. I couldn't get it fixed then, but I'm happy to report that the developers have fixed this bug, and by the end of the video, it will center itself properly. At 12, I met with Ina, I proposed for the 3rd time, and she said, "I thought you would never ask, Andrew. The answer is yes, of course." I just completely ignored that comment. At least we were getting married. I then went to the butcher and they were not selling any lamb on that day, so I thought, you know what, let me try that butchering feature, and I asked to butcher my goat. I don't know what I was thinking. I'll blame it on the nerves of getting married, but a goat and a lamb are 2 very different things, so yeah, I didn't get the right meat. I checked if I could buy another goat, but none were for sale on that day, so I wouldn't have goat milk for a little while. There is a bit of positive in everything though. I got some tallow from the butchering, and I was able to use it to craft a soap maker, which I could then put flowers inside to make soap, either to sell or to prevent the transmission of contagious illnesses. Since I had been crafting quite a few makers in the last week, I decided to check on the crafting pillar. I had to collect 4 more different craftable items, which would require quite a few materials, and I was not ready for that yet, but I also had to donate 8 more placeable items, and even though the number was higher, I knew that this would be easily achievable. I went home, I crafted 8 of these potted ferns. They only require clay and dirt, and that was it. I just had to deliver them. But first, time for Ina to move in and for our wedding ceremony. All of her family members were there, all of my family members were dead, almost, but I was excited for this new chapter of my life. After my wedding, I delivered my potted ferns to the crafting pillars, and seeing all of these ghosts remind me, if you've been waiting for an update on Verity Edwards, the serial widow of Honeywood, her new husband did manage to outlive her. Then I got back home, and while getting married to Ina took way longer than I thought, making a baby was the complete opposite. On the first night, she asked for it, and I said yes. So Ina was pregnant, and since her salary as a lighthouse keeper was only 20 coins per day, I decided to just let her work on the farm instead. There was nothing to do since it was winter, but it just made more sense to me to have her take some time off. Marcia was still going to school, and she was probably the one with the busiest days, as I also felt like I wasn't doing much. I crafted a candy maker. I had tons of apples left over, so I would slowly turn them into candy for some extra money, and hopefully I would also be able to use them for future Halloween events. It was then time for the winter gala. Just like in the first year, I spent most of the day harvesting cranberries all around the island, and at night there was a punch, and it was just a nice chance to catch up with everybody. Day 160, Concepcion sent me a letter saying that the gala was adequate, that everyone had a fair share of the punch. She made it sound like I could have done better, but she also sent me some cranberry punch, so I guess I did more than an adequate job if there were leftovers. Also, Patrick Stewart was getting married to Maritza, and I like to think that he's the one who finally got her to change out of her sunflower outfit. At night, I went fishing as I really needed to tackle that pillar. I was so lucky somehow, and I got a bunch of lobsters one after the other. I was now at 9 out of 10 lobsters, and I thought, oh, I just needed to have the right lure and to fish at night. It's so easy, and I'll just get the last one a bit later. Day 161, Tammy, our new baby girl, was born. I just did a few quests that day. There was a blood moon, but I still had no idea what to do during those, so let's go to day 162. I was making a bit of progress with the fishing pillar, but the biggest problem was that I still needed to donate 29 gold star fish, and they were just so difficult to get. The cooking pillar was even more behind. I needed to donate 20 gold star dishes and to give 30 gold star dishes to villagers, so that was a total of 50 gold star dishes. I started to feel quite anxious, and I had to figure out a way to finish those before day 200. That's when I had a little light bulb moment, and I saw that the baker was selling a gold quality bread. Then I went to see the angler, and she was selling a gold star clam. These would certainly not be for sale every day, but from that moment on, I would always check to see if anyone had something I could use for the pillars, and sometimes the innkeeper could have gold meals as well. This gave me a little bit of hope that I could make things work. I started the next day by drinking the cranberry punch I received from Concepcion. It gave me a buff called Super Lucky, which is supposed to provide a major bonus to item drops. I wasn't sure how it worked exactly, but I got gold milk from all of my animals that morning, so I thought I should maybe try to do some cooking. Unfortunately, the buff didn't seem to apply to meals, and no matter the quality of ingredients used, I couldn't get a gold star. It did put me on the right path though, as I had forgotten about the fact you could get buffs in this game, and from that point on, I would definitely keep that in mind. Thanks to my gold milk, I was able to finish the farming pillar. I was not too worried about this one, but I was glad to get it out of the way. The next day is when Tammy became a child, and I really wanted my kids to have better skills than Andrew did, so I sent her to school with her sister. I spent most of my day fishing, and while I didn't catch anything interesting, I did level up my fishing skill, which meant a better chance at higher quality fish. We were approaching the end of winter. Look at that calendar and keep in mind some funerals don't even appear because I had dates with Ina, but the elders kept passing away one after the other. I was also getting pretty close to becoming an elder myself. I just kept to my routine though, checked with the baker, innkeeper, and angler for some gold star stuff, and donating them for some minuscule progress. Day 166 was a very exciting one as I woke up to a new outfit in the mail, and I ordered the last house extension. That was something I had been working on very slowly on the side, and I was so excited for it. It was quite larger than my current house, however, so I did have to cut some old fruit trees and bushes in order to make some space. 2 days later, I woke up in what felt like a mansion. It was so huge, with one large main room that had 2 cooking pots, one room that I would use as a dining room, one room for my crafting stuff, then upstairs we had a master bedroom and a bedroom for the kids. Best of all though, this cellar tripled in size. But there was one problem. All of my furniture seemed to have been moved to that one room, which I didn't mind at first. I could just move stuff, but I noticed that some things were missing. Where were my wine casks, my spinning wheel, my loom, my workbench, my bed? So much of my furniture, including some stuff that was quite expensive or difficult to craft, was missing. I started rearranging what I could. It felt bittersweet because I had lost so much, but on the other hand, I was happy to have that new house as I was really needing the extra space. Of course, before I went to sleep, I absolutely had to go and buy a new bed. The following day was the first day of spring, so before getting back to my furniture, I decided to plant some crops. And look what I found in my seeds chest. What a relief. Everything that was missing was there. I have no idea what would have happened if I did not have an extra chest there, so if you're going to expand your house, just to be safe, I would recommend putting your furniture away first. I set up my crafting room, I put the extra bed in the kids' room, so that ended up working out, and then I got back to my farming. I made sure to plant a lot of hay because I was starting to run low on it after the winter, especially with my new coop. Animals reproduce automatically in this game as long as you have two of the same species, so my coop was slowly filling up with more beaks to feed. But also more eggs to collect, of course. I then spent my whole evening doing what I was dreading the most, moving my ice boxes and my chests. Like in most games, unfortunately, you can't move them if there's something inside, and it was quite a struggle. I was able to finish everything the next morning, and I had my two iceboxes in the kitchen next to each other, a chest for clothes in my bedroom, another one for medicine and special items. Things were starting to feel organized for the most part. I think some of the furniture glitched during the move, however, and it was impossible to remove this table and the little tray on top, which made me abandon the idea of decorating my dining room for now. Once the most important was done inside, I started working on the outside. I moved the house a little bit just to push it against the back of the land and get more free space. I removed the old dirt paths, and I made some brick bats and fences, trellis, and other little things that I could use to decorate. Which is what I spent most of day 171 doing. I put some brick paths leading to my house, planted raspberry bushes for some greenery, and I made this little fenced area where I would put my crafting things like my smelters and my kiln. I tried using these stones to make a terrace, but it didn't look great, so I just scrapped the idea. Keisha Whitfield sent me a nice dark wooden bench in the mail, and what a nice timing, I thought, and I was surprised because she was always so cold and mean. The bench was going to be perfect outside here right next to my fence, but no, unfortunately it was an interior bench, so it was not as good of a gift as I thought. I put it inside near the entrance, and I said this many times in my first video, but I wish the game would let us place decorative items both inside and outside. This is how my little crafting area looked at the end of the day. There was still a lot of work to do, but I like how the smelters look like this against the house. I then went outside for a little walk, and when I talk with villagers in this game, I always just double click very quickly on the talk button. So I was going to have a chat with Mario, my wife's brother, but my cursor was a bit too low and I clicked on the gift button. As usual though, I double clicked and by accident, not only did I gift him, I gifted him my steel watering can, which was worth something like 1300 or 1400 coins. I did have another one which I kept in my farmer chest for my family to use, but losing one of them was still quite a big deal. I had to keep going though, I didn't want to reload my save file and have to redo all of the farm layout work I had done. So I grabbed the can from the helper chest, I planted a few fruit trees, put down this beautiful lantern and went to bed. As if the game knew I had messed up with my watering can, it provided me with some rain the next day just to make things a bit easier. I did a bit more decorating and I made my very first cheese press. Things were starting to go pretty well. I dyed my outfit red to add a bit more color into my life. The biggest part of the decorating was done, at least I did what I could with the materials that I had. And I was starting to have more free time to get back into other activities like fishing and mining. My next big goal, along with the pillars I was slowly working on, would be the barn upgrade. A ship from the Empire came for the first time in 3 weeks, so I got some things I was missing such as steel bars, and I also needed a lot of paint as I wanted to make more brick fences as well as the white picket fences. On day 175, I became an elder. My first character never had that hunched back like the other elder villagers. I don't know if that was a bug, but Andrew did, and I love these kind of details in the game. Other than that though, I don't believe anything else changes as an elder, or at least I couldn't notice if I got sleepy faster or walked slower or anything like that. I replaced my brown wooden fence by a white picket fence, meaning I was officially living the American dream, as long as I was only looking at the upper left side of my farm. Day 176, I started working on the other sides of my farm, and on day 177, all of that hard work paid off because I had now crafted everything I needed for the crafting pillar. All that was left now was the 1 lobster, 26 gold star fish, and 45 gold star dishes, all in under 23 days. I was at level 4 of fishing, but I still couldn't get any goldfish by myself, no matter the lure I used or where I fished. But everything changed the next day when I met with Astra as she was selling a Blessings of Luck potion, and I thought back to that time I drank the cranberry smoothie. I milked my animals after drinking it, it was working. I cooked that wasn't working, but I had not tried fishing with that buff. It was past 9 p.m. I made myself comfortable near the pond on my farm. I had a little drink of that potion, and oh my gosh, did it work. Right away, I got a silver fish, not too bad, then a gold one, another gold one, another gold one. That was the way to do it. The goldfish kept coming and I stayed there getting as many as I could until 7 a.m. the next day. I slept throughout the day and woke up at 5 p.m. Then I headed to the pillars and I had now donated over half of the fish I needed in only one day. I also leveled up my fishing, which allowed me to get this perk that sometimes doubled the amount of fish. Do you realize how good that is? Day 180, all of my crops were wilting for some reason. I know I had not watered anything, but the watering cans were in the helper chest and Ina should have been working as it was a Thursday. I'm not sure what happened, but I knew that she would water everything today and that it would be fine. Crops were not my priority, I had to fish. I had another one of these Blessings of Luck potion in my chest, so I drank it, and I fished non-stop from 7 a.m. to 11 p.m., which is not too different from my schedule as I work on this video. In both cases though, it's worth it. Also, there were now so many instances where I was getting 2 fish instead of 1. The next day was the fishing contest, and even though I was in my fishing era and that's pretty much all I did, I didn't care for the festival. I just went and bought a few of the recipes there, then I went to donate my fish to the pillar. 29 out of 30. I was just missing one single fish. I went to the pier, drank another potion, and managed to catch a gold oyster. That was it for that part of the pillar. I was now missing that one lobster, but also noticed I needed to collect 3 new types of fish. I was at 25 out of 28. So I thought, let's go fish where I never fished, and I went to the Mermaid's Lagoon. So it does seem like this area does have a purpose after all, as it only took a few minutes before I got my first rainbow starfish. I just had to keep fishing in a few different spots at different times of day, and I would get it done. The next day, I was already at 27 fish out of 28. While I was doing that, in order to make getting gold star dishes a bit easier, I decided to let Tammy do an apprenticeship at the bakery. This meant that she now had the baker's inventory and that I could easily see and buy things from her whenever I was home and even if the bakery was closed. I was so busy with my fishing and just scrambling to finish those pillars, I had not even realized that Marcia was now an adult and she was helping her mom with the farm work. I decided to work a bit on my cooking skills, which were increasing painfully slowly. I made these Swedish waffles, ate them a few hours later, and found out that they were giving me the same buff that the blueberry cake I had after the bake-off did, increasing the quality of my cooked items. I got really excited, grabbed all of the eggs I had, I bought some flour from Tammy, and I started making some bread. Some of it was of bronze and silver quality, but I did also get a few gold ones. I needed a lot though. If only the third of my bread was gold, I had to get a lot more eggs and a lot more flour. Gold star flour if possible, which I could get in good numbers if I grinded it myself. I wanted to get as many ingredients as possible, eat some of these waffles, and just cook a ton of bread all at once. I only had 15 days left, but hope was back. Spring had been so busy, I had not planted any wheat, so that's the first thing I did the next morning. I would also make sure to buy flour from the bakery every day, all of it no matter the quality. I also bought a second cow just so if I ran out of eggs for bread, I could make journey cakes with milk. I crafted 3 new flour mills for a total of 5 just so I could produce as much flour as quickly as possible as soon as my wheat was ready. At night, I went back to fishing in the Mermaid's Lagoon and there I found a moonfish, so I had collected the 28 different fish I needed. I had been neglecting my mail among other things for a while, but on day 186, a letter caught my attention. My ex, Dwayne Odell, was getting married to this woman called Virgie Lord. I decided to pay him a visit, he gave me some food and also bought some of these Swedish waffles from him that I put in my icebox to keep for when I would do my big bread baking session. At night, I went fishing and I was determined to finally get the lobster I was missing for the fishing pillar. I fished and I fished and I fished for hours, but for some reason I could not get the lobster like I did in winter. I saw Dwayne's new spouse and she was actually pretty sweet. She gave me some wheat, which was one of the things I needed the most for my bread mission. I also noticed that she was a lot younger than Dwayne. She had just become an adult maybe 1 or 2 days prior. whereas Dwayne was close to becoming an elder. Questionable, but they're both giving me some pretty useful things right now, so as long as they're happy, I'm happy. I still couldn't find my lobster though, and why was no one giving me lobster? I decided to take a look at the wiki, and I learned that lobster could only be caught during fall and winter. Day 200 would be on the 11th of summer, so there was absolutely no way for me to finish that pillar in time. It was a bit frustrating. If I had known, it would have been so easy to just get that one extra lobster in winter. I'll blame it on the fact that the description for the lobster didn't specify the seasons, and there's just nothing I could do, but I'll try to at least finish the cooking pillar. I put the wheat I got from Virgie in my flour mill, then I went to bed. I started buying some cream. I still don't know if you can even make your own cream, as well as eggs, as I wanted to make sure I had as much stuff as possible to cook with. I stumbled upon Virgie again, and I think she really knew what I was doing as she gave me some more wheat. She was so nice, honestly I almost wanted to marry her, but I didn't have time for additional drama, as fun as that would have been. Speaking of drama, Marcia and Ina were not doing their farm work very well. It was Friday, they had watering cans and everything in their chest. It was not the first time this was happening, but they just did not water the crops at all. I was running around and working everywhere all day, and here they were just hanging out in their stairs doing their synchronized tea drinking. Since I had to do everything myself though, my skills were going up and I got to crafting level 10, which meant I could have the perk for faster refining, which would be very handy for making flour. Day 188 I ordered the barn upgrade, which would let me have double the amount of animals, and it would also look a lot better. I spent most of the day cooking, trying not to use my egg or flour, but I wanted to level up my cooking skill, increasing my chances of getting gold bread when I would be ready to bake. Despite everything I was making, I realized I would never be able to increase my skill enough to make a difference. Andrew was not a good cook, and I just had to come to terms with it. The next morning, I received an invitation to the Witch Coven. This happens on the last day of spring and autumn, but you do need to be close friends with Astra, which is why I wasn't able to go last autumn after Josh had passed away and Andrew barely knew anyone. I was planning to buy a midnight goat this time, but I had to make space in my barn first. I should have planned ahead and upgraded it a few days earlier, but I did not. I decided to butcher my regular goat, which was not even that old. Goats were really not lucky on my farm, but I would get another one soon after. At 11 PM, I met with the witches, I bought the midnight goat, a midnight cake recipe, and this colorful hat. And then I went back home right away. But I forgot that there was normally a ritual at 1 AM, and there could have been something very helpful there, but hey, there was a lot going on and I forgot. Day 190, I checked on my new midnight goat. She couldn't give milk yet, but she looked pretty cool, definitely worth the trade. It was the first day of summer, my wheat was almost ready, but planting new summer crops was not my priority. I made some more of the white picket fences as I still had a lot of the brown ones on my farm and I wanted to replace them. I fixed that, well, some of it, and then, as I said, I had come to terms with the fact that Andrew just didn't have the skills for the bread baking mission and that it would be difficult for him. He was also getting old, I only had 10 days left for the challenge, so I made him grab the death cake that I received from Astra over 90 days ago. It was still fresh thanks to the seller, and that was Andrew's last meal. Now I had to decide whose hands I would put the fate of this 200 days challenge into. Lobster aside, I absolutely wanted to complete the cooking pillar, and I was still 40 something meals short. Ina was out of the equation since she was previously the lighthouse keeper, and therefore there was very little chance that she knew how to cook. Marcia went to school for most of her childhood and she was likely to have a pretty well-rounded set of skills. Tammy was still a child, picking her would age her up instantly. She did not have as long as the other two to practice her skills, but she was an apprentice baker. I also noticed that Tammy had Turnip as her last name. I'm not too sure how the last names are assigned, but after close to 70 hours with this family, I was attached to the Turnip name. It was a tough choice, it was risky, but I went with Tammy. Cooking skill up, cooking skill up, cooking skill up. This message popped up 6 times right after clicking Tammy's name, And I also got a perk giving her increased food quality. All of her other skills were at 0, which I would have not liked in any other situation, but her cooking was level 6. She was born for this. I couldn't have asked for a better turn of events. She had the Swedish waffles her dad was keeping in the icebox, and she was ready to save Timothy. I tend to forget about Timothy, but we're doing all of this for him. Even though we're now 2 generations removed, he's too cute not to help. I grabbed some eggs, flour, but also a ton of other ingredients, and I started cooking. French fries, cakes, pastries, of course bread. The 2 pots were being used at their full capacity until I ran out of flour. The results? 29 gold star dishes in 2 hours. If you have not left a like on the video yet, do it for Tammy, she deserves it. She is so ready for that cooking pillar and also for the next bake-off, which unfortunately will take place after the 200 days, but she's gonna do so well. Thinking about food is fun, but I also had to start thinking about the family's future because you always need to be a step ahead in this game. I was browsing potential marriage candidates and there I saw Dave Pace, Concepcion's grandson, who was about to become an adult, so he could be a good option for Tammy. On the topic of Concepcion, she had just passed away, and today was Andrew's funeral. I did not have any nice dress or feminine outfit for Tammy to wear at his funeral, but I did have this colorful hat that he bought from the witches the day before his death. The color might seem a bit odd for a funeral, but it's kind of symbolic, so it works, I think. Since I had to gift 30 gold star meals, I decided to prioritize that first since you can only gift someone every 3 days, and there wasn't too much time left. There was a ton of people at the funerals, which made it very convenient. I was just handing out bread to everybody, 1 bread for you, 1 bread for you, but then I noticed that some people were missing. We were almost halfway through the funerals, and my mom and my sister were not there. Oh wait, mom ended up coming. Oh, never mind. She was like, nope, I don't care, there's too many people here, or maybe she's just really sad and it's her way of grieving. I don't know, but she was gone. Then my sister got here at 3:40, funerals were almost over. She called me madame as if she didn't know me, and then just like her mom, she just walked by the group of people for like 1 minute and then left. I came to realize that the Odell family was just a bit strange, like Dwayne who didn't show up when Josh died, leaving Andrew all alone. Tammy was different though, she was a good turnip. After the funerals, I checked the cooking pillar and I had already gifted 19 out of 30 villagers, which was amazing. I donated the remaining meals, which immediately completed the objective of donating 20 gold star meals. I made a few raspberry jam toast when I got home, and even without the help of the Swedish waffles, I did manage to get some gold stars. This was going to be a piece of cake or a piece of toast, but first I had to sleep, I had such a long day. I entered the master bedroom, then I realized, wait, that's my mom's room. It was my first time playing with the parent actually alive in the house. And so I walked down the hallway to the second door and I slept into the kids' bedroom for the first time. Honeywood couldn't handle 2 Tammys, so the following day, Tammy Lloyd passed away. I actually really liked her. I'll never forget how she showed up to Leo's funeral, and I probably would have never gotten a steel pickaxe without her. The wheat was finally ready to be harvested, and Tammy might not have had the highest farming skill, but she did find a nice meal given by Dwayne to Andrew, which provided better farm drops. Not sure if that meant higher quantity or quality, but I harvested everything. It was a lot of wheat, mostly bronze quality still, but knowing Tammy, I was confident she could make it work. While the wheat was getting grinded, I went to get fitted. I opted for this red dress with a green apron, which I thought went pretty well with my little hat. I also changed the haircut and went for this long curly style, which I think fits her so well, but let me know what you think of the makeover. By the way, I don't think there's a way to change the hair color, but I actually like the fact that you have to stick to your natural color, as it helps identify the different families. Andrew had that same kind of light brown color, so it's becoming like a family thing, which Marcia didn't get. Throughout the day, I kept refilling the flour mills, and once I felt like I had enough, I made a blueberry cream cake, gold star. Just like the Swedish waffles, this would give me a buff, which maybe I needed, maybe I didn't, but it couldn't hurt. It was getting late, however, so I decided I would keep it for breakfast, And yes, I did decide to give myself the master bedroom after a few days because I truly deserved it. In the morning, I grabbed my ingredients, ate my cake, started cooking, and less than an hour later, and I had 13 gold star meals. That was more than I needed. I walked around town and I started giving the food to everyone who had the chance to cross my path. By the time I made it to the pillar, I had exceeded the goal by 2, having gifted 32 gold star meals. If you told me 30 days before that I would finish this before the 200 days, I would have not believed it. I now only had one pillar left, the fishing one, because of that lobster, and I'm pretty sure there's really absolutely no way to get it in summer, but I don't want to leave you all hanging, so after the 200 days at the end of the video, we will fast forward to fall and go get that missing lobster. Other than that though, I managed to reach all of the objectives I had set for myself, so all of the other pillars and all of the building upgrades. Everything else was just extra, but I wanted to make the most out of these few days I had left. One of my favorite things to do when I'm done with the story in a farming game is decorating. I removed that one iron lantern and replaced it with all of these wooden ones I had made. I added an herb garden near my coop, I extended the brick paths, I added some trellis to separate parts of the yard, added some potted plants. There was still a lot to do, but Andrew would have liked it, and Josh and William would have loved it even more. By that time, Dave Pace, the guy I was planning for Tammy to marry, grew up, and I don't know how to feel about his new look. Maybe we could go for Philip Chesney instead, so let's see what he's up to. Oh, that's a very interesting first impression. I went foraging to change my mind. I also tried this new wallpaper I got in the mail. Not too bad, would just need a different floor. Day 195, a ship from the Empire was here, so I bought some paint, and I made some more of these white picket fences. If you want to decorate with those, be ready to spend a lot of money on paint. I also made this very cute gate for my crafting area, some stone paths on each side of the house, and redid a few details here and there. Day 196, I realized that if I wanted to finish those fences one day, but also if I wanted fancier furniture for my house, I would need a lot more money and from more passive or easier sources if possible. There were periods where I was farming and mining a lot and had thousands and thousands of coins on me at all time, but then there were other periods like now where I was busy with so many things like cooking, decorating, and socializing, but I didn't have that much time for farming properly and I wasn't making much money anymore. Now that it was summer with grapes everywhere and that I finally had a large cellar to store multiple stacks of them without having to worry or sacrifice anything else, I wanted to increase my wine production. I had 2 casks already, but to make more I needed wood, 75 per cask, so that's what I spent most of my time doing during the last few days, which brought me back in a way to my very first days on the island as Josh Turnip. I also needed steel bars. It was Sunday so the ship was still there, but I had to sell quite a few things to afford one. Not only did I want to secure my family's finances, another thing I wanted to protect was their health. There had been no diseases for a while in Honeywood, but these things were so unpredictable. I had to get my hands on that dissolved disease potion recipe, which I had previously failed to obtain when I mixed up the lamb and the goat meat. This time, I went to see the ghost of Luna McBell. She's the woman who saved Josh Turnip on day 1, and she simply asked for 10 goose eggs in exchange for the recipe. So easy. I was getting tons of goose eggs every day. I had 53 of them in the cellar, so I just grabbed 10 and delivered them. With this, I would be able to cure any illness affecting me or my family. This was the ultimate protection. Such a powerful potion would most likely be extremely difficult to brew, however. That's what I thought, but in reality it was ridiculously simple. It cost 50 mana, I had 3,500 and I barely did anything to get there. 2 elderberries, slightly rare but can be found in bushes, nothing too difficult. Lastly, 1 moonlight water which can be bought from Astra, but she was regularly sending me some by mail. I was able to make 7 potions right away. It almost felt too easy. Illnesses are a big part of this game. You have to get all of these different medicines that may or may not work and they cost a lot of money, so you have to be really careful not to get sick in the first place. Make sure you have family members as backup and the whole thing. But then you have this potion that, yes, it takes a while to unlock, but once unlocked, it's one of the easiest ones to make. Unless it has a very low success rate, it feels a bit overpowered. And the description doesn't specify the success rate, so I would assume it works at 100%. Anyway, this meant that I would not have to worry about illnesses anymore. Day 197, we were now in the second week of summer, and I still had done no farming, so it was time to catch up on that. But first, I checked on the barn. The upgrade had been completed for a few days, so there was a lot more room for animals, but I noticed some of them were missing. I no longer had my rainbow goat nor my first cow. Just like for my chickens and geese, if I wanted my barn animals to stay, I would need to have at least 2 of each so they could reproduce. I would also maybe even need a second barn because there are cows, regular goats, 2 special goats, sheep, and pig, even though these last 2 are not as useful in the long term, but I was not ready for a second barn yet. I spent the first part of my day planting seeds. Ina and Marcia were helping me this time around, and it was Monday, which meant new week, new taxes. Taxes were now 330 coins a week, and one thing I could confirm with confidence now was that every time a mayor died, I did not have to pay taxes for that week. So I started thinking that eventually it could become more affordable to pay the mayor with a death cake instead of coins. For now though, Dave Pace was the new mayor and I kept changing my mind, but with a little makeover, he could look fine. He was also my chance to find a spouse who made hopefully more than 20 coins a day. He spent most of his time dancing in the streets, and I like to think that he was maybe Quentin Whitfield in another life. I had a chat with him, gave him a peach, and he seemed to like it, so it wouldn't take too long to romance him. Day 198, I expanded my fields a bit more, planted some corn. Then I went foraging for some grapes and wood, a bit of mining as well, and I was finally able to make a third wine cask. Day 199, I made sure to meet up with Dave. I couldn't find him the day before. Then I did some more foraging and built wine cask number 4. I wanted a lot more wine casks. My plan was to keep building 1 or 2 every week. I just needed to make sure I bought steel bars whenever possible. One thing I had a lot of, however, was stone. I'm not completely satisfied with the layout, so I'll probably change it in the future, but I made these stone fences to put around my garden. I also placed some dirt paths in between each plot. I want to try different ones in the future as I think maybe wooden paths could look good as well. But I was just trying to wrap things up and get my farm into a presentable state by the end of the 200 days, so I spent most of my day working on that. Day 200, the final one. I continued working on my fields, I planted some cucumbers, and I was pretty happy with my garden. My coop was full of chickens and geese, all very happy. My barn could have had a few more animals, but I was at least getting a few products every day. There was a lot of unused areas left on my farm, and I should probably start growing some hay there before filling up my barn. Visually, there was still a lot of work to do, but I was making some considerable progress. I went to see Dave. Our relationship was doing pretty well already. It was not maxed out, but I decided to give him a marriage bouquet to see what would happen. He was not ready yet, which was fine. I knew it wouldn't take too much longer. I also met with Philip. I know he didn't make the best first impression, but I needed a plan B just in case. I got some wood in preparation for wine cask number 5. I met up with a few old friends, and I wrapped up the last day with a family portrait in the stairs. I think we can say it is a happy ending. So much happened in these 200 days, and this game has been such a rewarding and satisfying experience. Despite all of the illnesses, the drama, and the struggles, the turnip family was still going strong. Tammy managed to turn things around thanks to her cooking skill, and she's now doing everything she can to ensure an even brighter future for the next generation. Now you might be thinking, wait, you're not done with the story, what about the lobster? You're right, so let's fast forward to day 215 for those curious about the ending. It took me a few nights of fishing, but I managed to get a lobster on the 4th of autumn. I brought it to the pillar and life came back into the dark and gloomy limbo area. Beautiful pink flowers bloomed on the branches of the giant tree, the blue and pink sky filled up with glowing stars, and vegetation started thriving around the tree and in the water. Timothy expressed his gratitude, walked through the newly opened gate, and then the credits rolled. I also tried going through the gate, didn't work, and other ghosts were still in the area. I think Timothy is the only one who left, and other than that, nothing else changed as far as I could tell. The revamped limbo area did look really pretty, but honestly, I was hoping for a little bit more, like some special item or reward, But yeah, that's the ending of Echoes of the Plum Grove. Currently, I am not planning to make a 300 days video, but I still have a few things to do in order to complete the game, such as getting all of the fish, craftable items and dishes. I want to eventually get a character to level 10 in all skills. I'm still missing quite a few achievements, so I will definitely keep playing. I do live streams 3 times a week here on YouTube and on Twitch, so if you want to see more Plum Grove and other farming games, feel free to join me. So I hope you enjoyed these 200 days. Maybe it made you want to play the game, allowed you to experience it without having to play yourself. Maybe you learned some tips along the way and you can avoid some of the mistakes I did. No matter what you got out of it, thank you so much for watching. Let me know if you'd like to see other videos similar to this one, but with other games. Also, feel free to check out Tokyo Cooking from Red Deer Games. Leave a like and subscribe for more content like this, and I'll see you all in the next video.